Appointing an executor is a relatively easy task. Simply put, you need to write a will that clearly lists that person or organisation's name and what you intend for them to do. Typically, this might be something like, I appoint John Smith to be the executor of my will and trustee of my estate. This would typically be followed by other clauses that state what those phrases mean in the context of your will, and whether there are any special powers that you wish to pass on to your executor. For example, if you're appointing a friend or a family member as executor, a special clause would also need to be inserted in if you wish that person to be able to charge for their time and effort. If you don't appoint an executor in your will, then you haven't made it clear who you want to take charge of your affairs after you pass away. If you think that you've forgotten to include an executor, I'd recommend that you get your will redrafted as quickly as possible. This will avoid any issues or challenges. You don't have to tell your executor that you've appointed them. That said, many people do, and in most circumstances I'd suggest that you do that as a matter of courtesy. As a good rule of thumb, considering whether telling your executor that you've chosen them is likely to change anything about how they interact with you or with your family members. For example, if you've chosen your oldest child to be the executor, will that be something that creates conflict between you and your other children? On the other hand, think about what conflict could occur if you don't mention anything. It might be better to face those sorts of issues head on rather than letting everyone deal with it after you've gone. Also, you should consider what that executor may think if you change your mind and appoint someone else to do that job in a later will. They may be fine with it, or they may take it as a slight. There are no easy answers as to whether you do or don't tell an executor of their role, but whether you do or not, make sure that you think about the implications first. It's worth keeping in mind that your executor doesn't have any power over your assets until you pass away. It's not like appointing someone to be your attorney, for example. An executor's power and responsibilities come from two things. First, that they're named in the will, and it is your most recent will, and second, that you've passed away. Remember that your executor's role is linked to the will. You don't appoint an executor without writing a will. The executor's job is to act on the instructions and wishes in that will, so it's bound up in the same document. And if you don't write a will, you don't have an executor.